The Hobbit this week. Let me move this out of the way for the time being. And what I'd like to do is, if you have the story charts, like Caleb has, get those out. We've not done a real great job of filling them in, I fear, the vision that I had for using them, but at least they're a visual for you to see, what we're talking about. Yeah, Nathan. Well, the Hobbit movies are very, very bad. They ruined the story. Okay, you know what? I am in charge here. So this time I get to do my opinion. No, be quiet. I'm in charge means be quiet, everybody. They're visually fun to watch, but they've ruined the point of the story. The point of the story is not this stupid love thing between the lady elf and the dwarf, which never happens. The point of the story is not riding barrels, which happens for about half an hour. The point is how Bilbo, I'm ruining our lesson this morning, how Bilbo changes. And they did show that fairly well. I'll tell you two things the movie did well. His encounter with Gollum was amazing. And the dragon, his interactions with the dragon. But here's the thing, and I know I'm selling something you guys don't want to buy. I get it. But here it is. No movie can ever be as good as the picture in your own head. When you read a book for the first time, and if you are a attentive reader, you will have a whole world. So Nathan, you got to hear it from my side. I read The Hobbit in the 1970s when I was a little girl. And then these movies, and I'm like, that's a travesty. That is nothing. That is nothing. First of all, it's not even the right story with this Gothmog, orc, whatever, guy chasing them around. No. Although that is in the appendices, I realize things like this are going on behind the scenes. But it's not what I saw in my head. Now, one of my teachers that I have right now does not love the Lord of the Rings movies because of the changes they made and the change in tone. And I get what he says. But those movies did justice to the books you're about to see. But if you haven't watched them yet, read the books first. I'm begging you, read books instead of movies. Movies are pale. No, movies are someone else's pictures in their head. And they make you watch them. But you can have your own movie to every book you read in your own head. So my main problem with the Hobbit movies is, why in the world did they change the plot so much? I don't understand why they think there has to be a love story. This is not a love story. Love stories are fine, but this isn't one of them. And the dwarves would never, we know the dwarves from this book, right? They're too into their treasure. They got no time for lady elves. So I'm sorry to come down hard on you, but I feel passionate about this. And because these are cherished by me because of a lifetime spent with them. And it's like, I watched that and I thought, first of all, there's no reason for it to be 3 movies. Why did the barrel ride have to last so long? Oh my gosh, how many, rocks can they avoid? Just get out of the barrels already and move along. This is what I was thinking. Okay, let's stop and talk about this. Why? Why make the barrel sequence so long? Why make the Battle of 5 Armies so long? Why? Because we like action and violence. We are impatient people. We are used to movies that give us action, aren't we? We're just used to the action. And so if we watch a movie that's slower paced, my husband and I watched this movie, I thought it was never going to end. I'm serious. It was just, sometimes the camera just didn't move for like 30 seconds. And nothing happened. And I thought, this is driving me crazy. And there was an actual purpose in it. It had to do with the plot. The character in this movie, nothing was happening for this. It was a ghost. And nothing was happening over long periods of time. And so I realized about a third of the way through what the director was doing. It's like, shoot, I feel like that ghost. Nothing is happening. But it also made me realize I really like something to happen in my movies, Like, let's have a car chase. Let's have something happen here. No. And so anyway, thank you for letting me give you a speech and throwing my opinion down your throats, which I try not to do, but in this case I felt obligated. But you know what? They were fun to watch. They just annoyed me a little bit. Have your say now, Nathan.
You don't like to watch The Hobbit, you don't like to watch Dune.
Oh, I already saw the first Dune.
Awesome. I do love Dune, but it's so long.
Well, the book is really long, and I think the book is a little long and tiresome.
No, I like the book more than the movie.
Okay, everybody. So was it Asher or Oren had a hand up? Okay, say it. Is the moment past? Oh, which I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with that. Yes.
I mean,
the book.
The movie only portrayed half of the first book of Dune.
Yes.
But I still love it anyway. And then Harry Potter. They did not add Peeves in the first book. Peeves did not exist in movies.
Yeah. Harry Potter did a pretty good job, but
there are so many other scenes that did not go there, and it was.
You know what? I particularly loved Hermione's organization to free the house elves that didn't make it into the movies. Okay, thank you. This is actually a really interesting conversation that I would love to just have this morning, comparing books and movies. When my kids were little, we spent a year. They were really little, so they hadn't seen a lot of movies yet. So we read the books, like Pinocchio. We read Pinocchio before we watched the movie. We read The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood before we watched Disney's Robin Hood. You know, we read the stories, and then Wizard of Oz. And then we watched The Wizard of Oz. And then we compared and we talked about, and this is something for you guys to ask yourselves. When you watch a movie and read the book, you can ask yourselves, why do you think they left certain things out? Sometimes it's because it would have been boring to watch. Sometimes, like if it's a really old movie, Wizard of Oz, maybe they didn't have the special effects capabilities, to recreate that on screen. Now that's not an issue with CGI and stuff like that. They can recreate anything on screen. Another interesting comparison, if you've read and seen The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was amazing. Prince Caspian, meh, because Susan has this crush on Prince Caspian. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader was a little better, but Prince Caspian I felt like was ruined again because we have to have a love story. And why? And let me ask you, if you can remember, Oren, what you have to say. Why do you think we're going to throw in love story between Susan and Prince Caspian, love story between Elf and Feely or Keely, whoever it was? Why throw it in?
Because it's weird.
It's unique.
Maybe. Except there seem to be a lot of them.
Nobody's unique.
There?
You know, like Star Wars was based off of Dune.
Yes, I can believe that.
Like the voice in Dune, they used the Force.
Yes. No, when I read Dune, I thought this is very familiar. So here's my suggestion. Action appeals to a certain type of person, right? But love stories appeal to another type of person. I mean, not that you can't like both, but do you know what I mean? It tends, you gravitate towards one or the other. And maybe if you throw in new things, it appeals to more people. Like, I like this movie because it's got action. I like it because it's got this lovely love story and they're both so attractive. And maybe they're trying to sell more tickets. I hate to say that, but maybe. Okay, Oren, you waited very long. Oh. They condensed a lot of it. And this is another thing. Some books have a lot in them. And if you put everything into the movie, it'd be a really, really, really long movie, which is why Lord of the Rings uncut, are like 3-hour movies. Yeah, they're really long. You get some snacks and drinks and you get comfortable. Asher. They have, oh yes. No, because maybe it appeals to more people. All right, we're going to hear Oren on this subject, and then we are actually going to turn to the book. Yes.
We had to watch the extended version of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It was 2 movies for each book.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
they were both 3 hours long.
Yeah. It's
Super fun.
the extended is very long, and then I have the thing with all the extras, like 12 hours of extras for each movie. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, by the way, before I move on, my daughter leaves 1 week from yesterday for New Zealand to go hang out at the Green Dragon, dinner at the Green Dragon, and touring the Shire. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, I'll have to bring pictures in. Okay, let's actually do the lesson that I planned for today. Although this is interesting.
I like this talk. I wish we could have this talk for hours.
Well, maybe we can start another talk that's just as good. But I need you guys to stop talking for just a little bit, okay? And then I need some feedback in a moment. Last couple weeks, we've looked at 3 characters, Bilbo and Thorin and Gandalf. If you remember, was it just last week? We looked at Bilbo and we wrote some characteristics. We looked at Gandalf and we wrote some characteristics. And we looked at Thorin and we looked at some characteristics. And we added a little bit to that last week. This was last week, right? Where we talked about Gandalf handling Bjorn in a very clever way. Was that last week? For some reason, I'm thinking I didn't do that with you. That Thorin revealed just how grasping and greedy he really is, because he wouldn't say anything to the King of the Wood Elves. Like, if he just given him a little bit, it would have been fine. They would have let him out and said, "Great, have a good trip. See you when you get back." But no. And then we've noticed how Bilbo has changed over time. So we've been tracking these characters. We looked a little bit about setting. We talked about how Mirkwood and Rivendell are really different sort of places, and they have different sort of inhabitants. Bilbo, in the Fellowship of the Ring.
His voice has changed so much, and it's like, I remember that one part.
Okay.
And it got me like on the edge of my seat. I didn't watch it.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't say it, because I think I know what you're going to say. Does it involve seeing the ring again?
Yes.
Okay, don't say it, all right? Because shh, Jaden, shh. Let's all try to remember that if you've read ahead or if you've watched the movies, try not to spoil the plot for other people who are experiencing it for the first time. It's really hard because you get excited about things and you want to say it. I get it. I do it myself, but let's try. Okay, guys, and we're on the edge there, okay? So stop. Today, I would like to talk to you about, or have you talk with me about, and write these down on your story chart, conflicts. Now, I feel like there's just a boatload of conflicts in this book. Can you give me one conflict, Oren?
Thorin hates Bilbo.
Thorin versus Bilbo. How did that happen?
Oh, because Gandalf introduced them and introduced Bilbo in a not very smart manner.
Well, I don't know. Last week we said Thorin was doing things like asking Bilbo for advice. When they got off the barrels, he said, "What next? What went sour, Asher?" Oh, okay. Do you want to say what went sour?
He gave the Arkenstone to the Lakeman.
Gave the Arkenstone to Bard. The Arkenstone. Oh, by the way, this
To Bard? Who's Bard?
Bard is the guy who killed the dragon.
The guy who killed
Wait, he gave it to him?
Yeah.
As his 114.
Okay. Yeah. Did you not read the book?
I did, but I didn't recall.
Okay. Here's what I need you to do for a moment. The paper, the blank page that I asked you to open to, I want you to write this at the top of it. Does somebody have a piece of paper for Nathan? Does somebody have a piece of notebook paper? Should Bilbo have given the Arkenstone to Bard. You need to write this on the paper. And yes column and a no column. You need to copy that down. This is going to be the question for our next paper. We are not writing this paper this week. I will tell you what I want you to do on this topic, but we are also going to add things to this as we talk today. I'm going to wait till when everybody stops writing, then I will go ahead, because it's hard to listen and write at the same time. It is for me anyway. I can't multitask. I can't even single task. So, Oren said Thorin hates Bilbo. One result of giving the Arkenstone to Bard, and by the way, Jaden, he did this. I think I have a bunch of places I wanted to read, but we'll get to some of them. Well, I don't know. It'll happen somehow. Bilbo actually, let's just follow that up. Since Jaden asked that question, let me find a couple of places in here. It might be hard for me to find.
What question did I have?
What happened to the Arkenstone and why did he give it to Bard? Okay. Let's.
I don't think he should, because he could have been bad and just be like pretending to be bad. And what's so great about the Arkansas?
Oh,
like, it's just a rock.
No, it's not. It's the treasure of their. You know what? We need to read some. We need to read some to clear this up. First of all, what are dwarves like in general? Okay, yeah, unfortunately, dwarves tend to be greedy. Are they wicked?
No.
Why would you say that?
They can be like Mullen, the old guy.
Yeah, he's really nice. Bomber is sort of harmless. He's fat, drowsy, and harmless. Let me read to you something that the author says about them, okay? Now, remember what's happened. They have the key. They opened the door, and they said, well, Bilbo, you're the burglar. Why don't you just go on down there and check out the dragon? It's like, what? And so Thorin makes a speech, because, he's the king. Now is the time for our esteemed Mr. Baggins, who has proved himself a good companion on our long road, and a hobbit full of courage and resource far exceeding his size, and if I may say so, possessed of good luck far exceeding the usual allowance. Now is the time for him to perform the service for which he was included in our company. Now is the time for him to earn his reward. You are familiar with Thorin's style on important occasions, and I will not give you any more of it, though it went on a good deal longer than this. And then Bilbo answers him. If you mean you think it is my job to go into the secret passages first, O Thorin, Thrain's son, Oakenshield, may your beard grow ever longer, he said, crossly. Say so at once and get it done. I might refuse. I've got you out of 2 messes already, which were hardly in the original bargain, so that I am, I think, already owed some reward. But third time pays for all, as my father used to say, and somehow I don't think I shall refuse. Perhaps I begin to trust my luck more than I used to in the old days. So he goes down. Now, what happens? Okay, let me ask this. What do dragons do when they talk to you? What does talking with a dragon do to people?
They use poems or like riddles.
Riddles, okay. So Bilbo sort of engages in it, right? And he's like, well, who are you? I never smelled your kind before. And Bilbo gives himself a bunch of names. Oh, I am Barrel Rider, and he who walks unseen, and I come from the end of a bag, but no bag went over me, because he comes from Bag End, and the dragon says, oh, very nice. But he's thinking, yeah, Barrel Rider. Yeah, I bet those lake men had something to do with it. And I know dwarf smell when I smell it too. What Do you remember what dragons tend to do to people in the book? What they do to Bilbo? Well, I mean, they incinerate you, but before that, and then they eat you. I guess they want to eat you before they incinerate you. I'm not sure. Maybe they do a little bit. All right. Here's what the dragon did. He planted doubt. He said, I don't know if it's occurred to you that even if you could steal the gold bit by bit, matter of 100 years or so, you could not get it very far. Not much use on the mountainside, not much use in the forest. Bless me, had you never thought of the catch? A 14th share, I suppose, or something like it. You know, because Bilbo said, I was chosen for the lucky number. Anybody could see, well, okay, there's 14 of you because they didn't want 13. Bad luck. What about delivery? What about cartage? What about armed guards and tolls? And Smaug laughed aloud. He had a wicked and wily heart, and he knew his guesses were not far out, though he suspected that the lakemen were at the back of the plans. You will hardly believe it, but poor Bilbo was really very taken aback. So far, all his thoughts and energies had been concentrated on getting to the mountain and finding the entrance. He had never bothered to wonder how the treasure was to be removed, certainly never how any part of it that might fall to his share was to be brought back all the way to Bag End under Hill. Now, a nasty suspicion began to grow in his mind. Have the dwarves forgotten this important point too? Or were they laughing in their sleeves at him all the time? That is the effect of dragon talk on the inexperienced. Bilbo, of course, ought to have been on his guard, but Smaug had a rather overwhelming personality. Suddenly, Bilbo has a doubt. He has a doubt. I'm going to put this up here. You don't have to write it down yet, but we're going to use it, okay? Doubt planted by Smaug. I'm just going to write this down to remember so we can use it and put it where we want to put it. He's planted the seed of a doubt. Oh my goodness, those jerk dwarves. They're going to use me and stiff me, aren't they? They're not going to give me anything. Is that true? No, it's not. It says, and let's go back to that original quote that I skipped over. The most that can be said for the dwarves is this. They intended to pay Bilbo really handsomely for his services. They had brought him to do a nasty job for them, and they did not mind the poor little fellow doing it if he would. But they would all have done their best to get him out of trouble if he got into it, as they did in the case of the trolls at the beginning of their adventures, before they had any particular reasons for being grateful to him. There it is. Dwarves are not heroes, but calculating folk with a great idea of the value of money. Some are tricky and treacherous and pretty bad lots, and some are not, but are decent enough people like Thorin and company, if you don't expect too much. They're not heroic. They're not special, but they're not all bad. I love this paragraph because I suspect it kind of describes people. Do you know what I mean? Some are treacherous and pretty bad lots. Some are decent enough. You don't expect too much. I feel like some of us are like that. So they planned to reward him. Like, he's going to do something we don't want to do. We're not going down that tunnel. You do it, Mr. Baggins. We hired you. But they would have gotten him out if necessary. So he's down there. They're hunting around. There's only one thing Thorin wants. The Arkenstone, murmured Thorin in the dark, half dreaming with his chin upon his knees. It was like a globe with 1,000 facets. It shone like silver in the firelight, like water in the sun, like snow under the stars, like rain upon the moon. What has happened? What happens to dwarves in general when they get in the presence of the treasure? Yeah. They want it even more. Do you guys, we were just talking about the Voyage of the Dawn Treader not very long ago. Some of you may remember or know the story of Eustace Scrubb, who it's described that sitting on a dragon hoard, thinking dragony thoughts in his heart, he became a dragon himself. So they're there, and you think, okay, does this just affect dwarves? Listen to the next paragraph. But the enchanted desire of the horde had fallen from Bilbo. If something falls away from you, what does that mean? Where was it once? If you don't have it anymore, you had it once upon a time. Does that make sense to you guys? Something can't fall away from you if you never had it. At some point, Bilbo also was mesmerized by the treasure. Maybe it's the lingering dragon aura, the dragony thoughts. He goes and everything's glittering. He just has a little light. Everything's glittering everywhere. It's like, oh, I'm going to jot this down as something maybe to think about. You don't have to write this down yet either. Bilbo, enchanted by treasure. Once, at least at one point. Not always, but at one point. Okay. What's the next thing I thought was important? All right. Yes, Jaden.
At that point, I don't understand why he tried to hide from the dragon at that point. I wish he just brought the spear in with them. So then while he was sleeping, he could have killed him.
Well,
so then it wouldn't have
Dragons
But-
don't just die. Like these things are huge.
yeah. Also, Jaden, he didn't know he was going to be asleep the first time he went down. And I don't think they had a spear.
They had a spear when they were back at or there was like a perfect spear that could kill the
I think that's Bard's arrow.
what?
I think that's the arrow that belongs to Bard.
Yeah.
But I think you're thinking more of the movie, not the book. It just happens to be a special arrow that has served his family well. It's not enchanted in any way. This is another thing the movie botched. But you know what, Jaden? I think the dwarves, here's their problem. And I just read it. Bilbo said they just wanted to get there and find the door. They didn't really think about how they were going to get rid of the dragon.
Yeah.
This was a problem. And back at the party at the beginning of the book, he said, well, I guess we'll sit on the doorstep and think of something. And when they got there, the dwarves said, okay, Mr. Baggins, you said we were going to sit on the doorstep and think of something. Start thinking. So he didn't know he was going to be asleep the first time. And he didn't know he was killable. Remember something. Who discovered the fact that there was a bare area on his chest, on the dragon's chest? Did Bard discover? Who did Bard hear that from? No. Who told Bard? Something that flies.
Eagle.
A thrush. A thrush is like a little sparrow. It's sparrowy. A little bird literally told him. How did the little bird find out?
He flew in, risked his life.
Did he like watch it whenever it's
Bilbo told Thorin, and the thrush overheard. Bilbo discovered the means of killing the dragon.
What?
If Bilbo hadn't gone in there and said, because he was getting into the dragon conversation thing at this point, it's like, oh, Smaug the Magnificent. I just came in to see if you're just as awesome as everybody says. And, some people say that you have weak spots underneath, but I don't believe that personally. But some people do say that. Is that true? And and the dragon rolls over. He's like, check it out. I am encrusted with jewels. And Bilbo says, oh, that's amazing. But what he thinks is, you stupid idiot, you got a big open spot right there. I can see it plain as day. We could just stick something right in there and kill you. And then he told Thorin, the thrush hears, tells Bard, Bilbo brought down the dragon. That chain. Bard shot the arrow, right?
Yeah,
But Bilbo, so here's another thing I want to write down. You don't have to write this down yet. Bilbo discovered how to kill Smaug. This is Bilbo's doing, even though other people acted it out, shot the arrow and that sort of thing. So, okay.
I know, but I feel like Bilbo should have gotten like all the money. Like I knew Bilbo has a kind heart the whole entire time. He would have given most of the money to the village, but I think he like none of the dwarves should have like got any money from it. Like I think Bilbo is the only one who should have got it. Because to think of it,
It's there now.
for me to risk my life for treasure like the Arkenstone, I don't think I'd do that. And he risked his life. Like, man, it was like he could have gone to Arkenstone, or he wouldn't have returned and gotten nothing from it. Just a big incineration.
This was very risky. On the flip side, Jaden, this is their ancestral treasure. So I mean, it's not that the dwarves are stealing treasure from a dragon. This was theirs.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes a difference. That it's not that we're all going to go on this venture and steal a bunch of treasure away from this dragon. It's we're returning to our home kingdom and the stuff that belonged to us once upon a time. And honestly, Jaden, a 14th part of what is described in the book is a fortune more than any hobbit could ever spend. And in fact, even the little bit that he takes at the end, because he doesn't really take a 14th of it, because he says, there's no way I can carry a 14th of this all the way to the Shire. He takes a couple of little chests, of treasure, and it lasts him the rest of his life, and there's plenty for his nephew Frodo, apparently, to live on very comfortably. So I mean, I agree with you, Jaden, that Bilbo puts himself out there more than any of the dwarves. And Bilbo is the pivotal thing. I mean, he gets them out of the Wood Elves' cave. He saves them from being eaten by the spiders. He encourages them to follow the path to Lake Town, where they get supplies. He at pivotal moments, he makes important decisions. Plus, like he said, he brought down the dragon in a sense.
Also,
But
when they were trying to find the hole for the key,
he found it.
yeah,
Good.
he was. They were all about to go back. But, okay, that was the biggest turning point. I was on the edge of my seat.
Excellent.
Like, what's going on? What's going on? And then, he found it.
Okay, so let me hold on to that thought because I think there's let's Zach chime in while you're thinking of it.
So this is kind of off topic, but
That's okay.
really quick, you mentioned Frodo, and since we were talking about movies and stuff,
Mhm.
I did not like how the Lord of the Rings depicted Frodo. I thought they made him out to be a wimp.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe we'll pursue that idea when we started about reading the Lord of the Rings.
I just mentioned it because earlier we were talking
You betcha.
about
So Bilbo, the dragon is dead, but they don't know it, right? Do you remember that? The dragon has been killed, and he just doesn't come back, but the dwarves don't know why he doesn't come back, and they're waiting. They're kind of on pins and needles, as they say, waiting for the dragon to return. So Bilbo, they're all looking at the treasure, and Bilbo sees a light. It was the Arkenstone, the heart of the mountain. So Bilbo guessed from Thorin's description. But indeed, there could not be two such gems, even in so marvelous a hoard, even in all the world. Ever as he climbed, the same white gleam had shone before him and drawn his feet towards it. Slowly it grew to a little globe of pallid light. Now as he came near, it was tinged with a flickering sparkle of many colors at the surface, reflected and splintered from the wavering light of his torch. At last he looked down upon it, and he caught his breath. The great jewel shone before his feet in its own inner light, and yet cut and fashioned by the dwarves who had dug it from the heart of the mountain long ago. It took all light that fell upon it and changed it into 10,000 sparks of white radiance shot with glints of the rainbow. Suddenly, Bilbo's arm went towards it, drawn by its enchantment. His small hand would not close about it, for it was large and heavy gem, but he lifted it, shut his eyes, and put it in his deepest pocket. Now I'm a burglar indeed, thought he, but I suppose I must tell the dwarves about it sometime. They did say I could pick and choose my own share, and I think I would choose this if they took all the rest. All the same, he had an uncomfortable feeling that the picking and choosing had not really been meant to include this marvelous gem, and that trouble would yet come of it. All right, here's the first thing I do definitely want you to write down. Is the Arkenstone Bilbo's by right?
Yeah. Well, he found it.
I would say, okay.
No, it doesn't matter.
So we got both sides here. If it doesn't belong to him, does he have a right to give it away to someone else? Okay, no, we can settle on that. So let's go to no. Should he give it? And let's write this down. It doesn't belong to Bilbo. Don't worry, we're going to hit the other side of this question. And let's, as subsidiary to that, it's too important to Thorin, obviously. Can you all see this? It's probably not included in the 14th share, the 1/14th share. 1/14. Okay. Another point on that. So if it doesn't belong to him, he has no right to dispose of it. Asher and Nathan. Don't. Did you already copy all this down? Okay, awesome. Now, some of you said, yes, you think it should be his by right. What's your reasoning for that? Why do you think that maybe he has a right to it? Well, how about he did discover how to bring the dragon down? How about we take this and write, yes, he should. We'll put it should be his. How can I phrase that? Bilbo has a right to it. Why? Because he discovered how to kill Smaug. Not to mention that he saved them already, as we just said, from, what do we say? Wood elves, spiders. What else did we say? He didn't really save them from the trolls. That was kind of a botched thing. He found the door. That's the other thing we said. That's not really saving them. Found the door and the keyhole. Yeah. They just didn't listen to him sometimes, did they? I'm thinking of the time, although he was confused too. Do you remember in Mirkwood when they sent him to climb a tree to see how far the woods went? And unfortunately, he was in the bottom of a little dell. So it just looked like the woods went on forever. They were actually pretty close to the edge of the woods, but he was telling them, "Oh, there's sunshine and butterflies," and they're just, "Shut up, Mr. Baggins. We don't want to hear it because we can't climb up there and see it and get a feel of the sun." So sometimes they just wouldn't listen to him. Okay, so if it actually legitimately could belong to him, he then has a right to give it to whoever he wants for whatever reason he wants. If it's not really meant to be his, you can't give away other people's stuff. That's bad form.
Ooh,
Yes.
but when he got back to his house, the people were taking his stuff and it wasn't theirs.
So steal.
This is true, which is why he hates the Sackville Bagginses, because they're rude, but they did think he was dead.
At the same time, though, like, sure.
They were auctioning it off.
3 years. So what?
I think he was only gone for 1 year. But 1 year is a long time to be gone
I know,
suddenly.
What if someone was on a 3-year road trip, just got back, he just lost, like, everything. Cause like
That's a bummer.
yeah, and then he comes home and he has nothing.
You know what the moral of that story is? If you go on a long trip, tell people. Tell people, I will be back. Don't sell my stuff. I'm not dead.
I mean,
Maybe that's the.
3 years and he was off to kill a
Honestly,
dragon.
though, I wish there was phones back in the day. You could just be like, someone could be like, "Are you dead?" And then you're like, "No."
No, I'm not dead. Don't sell my stuff.
Even if he said to them that he would come back, they probably would still stop eating.
You know what? They would have, because we hear that the Sackville Bagginses had always wanted to live in Bag End. They waited just eagerly. They wanted Bilbo to die so that they could get Bag End, and then I know that's why they're the Sackville Bagginses, Jaden. Okay, so you know what?
Was there very little houses?
Yeah, I'm gonna read this.
No.
Oh, no, that's the name of a family, not a town. No, Bag End was particularly nice. It was just really nice house. Hobbit hole, but it was really luxurious and nice. They just wanted to live in a nice place, a nicer place than their own house. I know. That's the face you should make when you talk about the Sackville Baggins family, obviously. Okay, let's talk about this guy he gave the Arkenstone to, Bard. Do you remember that a raven comes and talks to them because none of them speak thrush language anymore? But they know how to speak to the ravens. And the raven comes and he says, yeah, you're asking about my dad. My dad is dead. I'm his son, but what do you want? Here I am. And he said, and FYI, the dragon is dead. You should know, y'all should know that the dragon is dead. And of course, they're all delighted. And this is what the raven says. So much for joy, Thorin Oakenshield. You may go back to your halls in safety. All the treasure is yours for the moment. But many are gathering hither beside the birds. The news of the death of the guardian has already gone far and wide, and the legend of the wealth of Thror has not lost in the telling during many years. Many are eager for a share of the spoil. Already, a host of the elves, already a host of the elves is on the way, and carrion birds are with them, hoping for battle and slaughter. By the lake men, the murmur that their sorrows are due to the dwarves, for they are homeless and many have died, and Smaug has destroyed their town. They think, too, to find amends from your treasure, whether you are alive or dead. So do you understand the point? Lake Town has been destroyed. And it's like, it's the dwarves' fault. The dwarves should pay. The wood elves say, there's treasure in that mountain. Give us a share. Remember that they all think that the dwarves have probably been killed in their defense, right? They think the dwarves have been eaten or incinerated. Your wisdom must decide your course, but 13 is a small remnant of the great folk of Durin that once dwelt here and now are scattered far. If you will listen to my counsel, you will not trust the master of the lakemen, but rather him that shot the dragon with his bow. Bard is he, of the race of Dale, of the line of Girion. He is a grim man, but true. Who is Bard's family? Of the race of Dale, of the line of Girion. Bard is a former king, prince of the town that years ago Smaug obliterated. Bard is a ruler. It's like this. So here's the mountain, right? And there was a lake here, and then a stream runs down, and then there's another lake, and this is where the lakemen live. Okay? So they came to the lakemen, after Lake Town, blah, blah, blah. And they traveled up, and there used to be a town. There used to be a town, Dale. And when the dragon came, he just incinerated all this area, right? Including Dale. It's Bard City, where his forefathers ruled. Now, ask yourself, that treasure in the mountain, do you think all the wealth in that mountain only came from the dwarves? Or did he steal everything from Dale? If I were a dragon, I would steal everything from Dale because I want every piece of treasure anywhere near me to be mine. Which means some of the treasure in here belongs to who now? Bard. Bard is a king of Dale, which means some of the treasure is his family's. Does that make sense to everybody?
What is the Arkenstone?
Ah, but is the Arkenstone. Now, was Bard, okay, do you all understand the exchange? So I don't think I marked that as something to read. Bilbo has the Arkenstone. They're walled in the mountain, right? Because Thorin's building a wall in front of the gate, like send a message to my cousin Dane in the Iron Mountains so he will come and help us, but I'm not giving a piece of gold to anybody. Not happening. And there's, 14 of them in there. They're not going to be able to fight them off forever. And there's armies surrounded. And does anybody have a feel for why? There's two answers to this question. Why Bilbo slips out and gives the Arkenstone to Bard? There's two ways you might answer that, but
He was taking Thorin, like he was searching day and night looking for it.
oh, do you think it was to remove it from Thorin's obsession?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea.
I think
It did it work?
it did actually. I think it did help because he was all like, "I need gold."
Yeah.
And then
He was. This is a good impression.
then like now he's like dead in heaven. He's like floating around.
Well, but not as a result of
in the spirit
lack of
realm.
treasure. That is an interesting observation. What was his motivation? But again, I can see two ways you might answer this question. What do you think, Oren?
That's not exactly, it's not exactly related, but if Bilbo hadn't given the stone to Bard, then the war afterwards might not have started.
Okay. Here, let's follow Oren's idea. We'll go back to my thing in a minute.
Died, and then the other two guys who died wouldn't have died, and then a lot of other people wouldn't have died. So honestly, I think no.
Because it led to
People died.
people dying. So this is a great, when we are asking a question like this, one of the wonderful questions to ask is, what might have happened if you had done the other thing? And follow that line of thought, which is exactly what Oren's doing. What might have happened if it hadn't exploded like that? Well, if he hadn't given it, war might have been averted, because it really incensed Thorin, didn't it? To see Bard holding the treasure of his house, the thing he's been looking for. It really fired Thorin up. It's like, that's it. I'm done with you, all of you. He tries to kill Bilbo, right? He's like, just throw him off the wall. I'm done with him. War might not have happened, and if that were the case, then Thorin wouldn't die, and other Feeling Keely, right? Some other dwarves died. We'll just say less death toll in general. He did do it. Did it avert war? Did the giving of the Arkenstone stop the war anyway? No. And so here's another way. It didn't help. The war still happened. Thorin still died. And much other death and destruction. It still happened. So, and we're weighing it very heavily on the no. Hey, when we're thinking about it, well, no, that doesn't really. that doesn't really apply. Okay, now you guys are going to have to help my brain go back. What was I asking you? Oh, what was his motivation for taking it? Why did Bilbo slip out of the dwarves' encampment, slip out of the mountain at night by rope, and take the Arkenstone to Bard and say, Bard, here you go? Why did he do it? What did he hope to accomplish? What do you think, Nathan?
Stop the war.
Okay. That's definitely part. Let's hear what Hans has to say, too.
To make Thorin give some of the gold to
Okay. Both of those. First of all, Bilbo says, like Nathan said, I'm sick and tired of this. I just want to go home. This is intolerable. I've been gone too long. I don't have my handkerchiefs. I haven't had a decent meal. I just want you all to play nice. I want to go home. I got to bring this to a conclusion somehow. And how is he going to do that? By giving Bard a bargaining chip, right? Bard can say, I know you want this. You can have it if you give us some of the money that really you owe us, because A, I'm a former Lord of Dale. Some of that treasure is mine and my family's. B, we helped you with supplies to go up to the mountain. We fed you and nursed you guys back to health after you were all, had pneumonia after the barrel thing. And a bunch of our people are dead and our town is destroyed. So he hopes, Bilbo hopes to end the war. So in this case, he means well, right? I mean, he has a good intention. We can ask ourselves, if we just mean well, does that make everything okay? Hopefully we see that just meaning well doesn't make everything all right. But he does mean well. He has good intentions. He thinks it will end war. Now, when he goes over to the camp where Bard is, someone else is there that he hasn't seen in a while and he doesn't expect. Dear Gandalf. And what is Gandalf's opinion of Bilbo's action? Do you remember?
He applauds it.
Yes. He says, well done, Mr. Baggins. This is another thing to ask ourselves when we're brainstorming. What do other people say about it? What do other characters say about it? Gandalf thinks it's a good idea. I'm sorry, this is not big enough for you, Jaden. Thank you for adjusting yourself and coming up here. Think it's a good idea. And what did we say about Gandalf? Is he pretty smart and wise? Okay. And he is wise, clever. And somebody who's super wise and clever thinks this is a good move. That says something pretty strong. Gosh, we're getting all of this out of the Thorin versus Bilbo conflict. Okay, let me move on. Let's see what the next thing is. So here's Bard's argument to add on to, Bard is king of Dale. See if we can put anything else by that. I am Bard. Oh, and by my hand the dragon was slain and your treasure delivered. Bard killed the dragon. I know we said Bilbo, led to the killing, but Bard pulled the bowstring back and shot the arrow. He did it. Is that not a matter that concerns you? Moreover, I am by right descent heir of Girion of Dale. I read that. Is that not a matter of which we might speak? In this last battle, Smaug destroyed the dwellings of the men of Esgaroth, and I met the servant of their master. I would speak for him and ask whether you have no thought for the sorrow and misery of his people. All right, let's kind of add that in there too. Esgaroth has been destroyed. So maybe they are owed some compensation. They are owed compensation. I'm sorry, this is getting a little messy. If you don't understand what I've written or can't see it well enough, we're going to just move our conflict over. Okay. This is the paper we're doing, but we're not writing it this week, okay? Yes, but the finished paper is not going to happen this week. Yeah, I will tell you what I want you to do in just a minute, okay? I promise. Will not leave you hanging. Also, I'm going to edit these papers you just gave me, and there may be some rewriting of those papers. So while we work on that, we're going to start brainstorming for our next paper. Okay, Thorin versus Bilbo. Does he hate him until he dies? I mean, does he hate him? No. He says this lovely thing after the battle. Won't talk about that. That's self-explanatory. The Battle of Five Armies. What? Elves, dwarves, eagles, goblins. I don't remember who else, but Bjorn also gets involved, which is awesome because he comes in as a bear and just starts mauling people. I like that. Thorin comes to his senses. Let's add this. But no, I'll say it clearly. You can listen to what I say, okay? It doesn't belong. Let's put it under. It doesn't belong to Bilbo or somewhere in that vicinity. Bilbo. Let's do the Bilbo was enchanted. Bilbo enchanted by treasure. And sometimes when you're enchanted by something, you make bad decisions. Does that make sense? You're not thinking clearly. Can you see or do you understand what I'm saying, Jaden, that you can copy it? Okay.
I just wrote everything you just said.
Okay, awesome.
What section will we put doubt or doubt planted by?
You know, before I read this next thing, let's think about that. So Bilbo, okay, so if doubt about the dwarves has been planted, it's this little seed. Maybe he's still their friend, but he's got this seed of, are the dwarves using me? Will they do what they say? Do you think that would more lead Bilbo to snatch treasure for himself behind their backs and do things they don't know about? Or do you think that would more make him trust them and tell them everything? If you think someone might not be honest, are you going to trust them or not trust them? Well, but you don't think they're honest. You don't think they're telling you the truth. Do you trust them or not trust them?
No.
Okay, so you don't trust them. So if you don't trust them, do you feel like you have to report everything you do to them? I don't trust you. Why would I tell you what I'm up to? Do you see, does anybody see where I'm going, the path? Tell me, Hans, can you connect the dots? Go ahead, do it. Yeah. Bilbo doesn't want to share the fact that he found the Arkenstone with them. Bilbo doesn't want to share the fact that it could be a bargaining chip because he doesn't trust them. So, Jaden, do you see that could be what could that be? Yes, he should. He should give the Arkenstone because he doesn't owe those dwarves any explanation. Those crummy dwarves are probably just using him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So maybe we could take this and bring it over here and say, Bilbo doesn't trust them. And so doesn't think he owes them an explanation of his actions, you know. Of course, now we have on the other side, Bilbo only doesn't trust the dwarves because the dragon planted that idea in his mind, because of the dragon talk. We'll just call it dragon talk to make it. You guys know what I mean. Can you guys, is that chair in your way? I see you guys leaning. So, yes, at the end of Thorin's life, farewell, good thief, he said. I go now to the halls of waiting to sit beside my fathers until the world is renewed. Since I leave now all gold and silver and go where it is of little worth, I wish to part in friendship from you, and I would take back my words and deeds at the gate. Bilbo knelt on one knee, filled with sorrow. Farewell, King under the mountain, he said. This is a bitter adventure if it must end so, and not a mountain of gold can amend it. Yet I am glad that I have shared in your perils. That has been more than any Baggins deserves. No, said Thorin. There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must leave it now. Farewell. Did Thorin forgive him?
I actually don't know.
Yes.
I was thinking that.
He said, there is courage and wisdom in you. We saw the courage.
Meaning and a bad.
What would be a bad? Can you think of an example of a bad meaning of courage or wisdom?
Courage. I mean, you could have courage to do the wrong thing, and you could have courage to do the right thing.
That's a good point. It might take courage to rob a bank.
Yeah.
But I should not do it. It doesn't make me courageous because I robbed the bank. Well, do you think, here, Jaden, let me twist it this way. When he says it, do you think he means it in a good way or a bad way? Listen, yeah, there is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Thorin says, Bilbo, you have courage and wisdom. That sounds a little bit to me like Thorin may be saying, in the end, you did the right thing. I think, you guys can dispute this. We don't really have time to have a whole dispute, but I think Thorin, while he's dying, realizes Bilbo was wise. And he says, if I loved friends and feasts and firesides and songs more than I loved gold, I wouldn't be laying here dying right now. I would have given some of this treasure away to people who needed it. Now, here's a question. I talked about this with my kids yesterday. I want to see what you think. Do the other people that are surrounding the mountain have a legal right to the treasure? Like legally?
No.
Maybe barred a little bit because that might be some of his family treasure. But all the rest of it belongs to who? Thror and Thrain and Thorin, the kings under the mountain. So legally, like if you took it to court and sued them, I want some of your treasure. Like, that belongs to them. Now, do they have a moral right to it? In other words, would it be a good thing to do to give it to them to help them take care of their sick and wounded and rebuild their ruined town?
Yes, that would be amazing.
Or to even help them get there. So.
Yeah, to reward them for their help. Yeah, so legally, Thorin's very legal, right? This is my treasure and nobody's going to have any of it. And Bard and Bilbo, and honestly, some of the other dwarves, right, who feel like Bilbo, but they have a moral right to it. They really should be given some of it, even if it's not legally theirs. Two different things going on. So we have a lot of conflict, don't we? We have the, everyone versus Thorin. You know what I mean? There's one conflict, though. We shift gears a little bit. I want to read. When they first, this is going back in the plot a little bit, when they first send Bilbo down that tunnel, the very first time. And as we said earlier, Bilbo doesn't know that the dragon is asleep. Bilbo does have a ring that makes him invisible. This is very helpful if you're going to approach any sort of dangerous beast that might incinerate you or eat you. But listen to what it says about his journey down the tunnel. A sound began to throb in his ears, a sort of bubbling like the noise of a large pot galloping on the fire, mixed with a rumble as of a gigantic tomcat purring. This grew to the unmistakable gurgling noise of some vast animal snoring in its sleep down there in the red glow in front of him. It was at this point that Bilbo stopped. Going on from there was the bravest thing he ever did. The tremendous things that happened afterward were as nothing compared to it. He fought the real battle in the tunnel alone before he ever saw the vast danger that lay in wait. At any rate, after a short halt, go on he did. What kind of conflict would we call that? It's mental. It's Bilbo inside his own head, isn't it? I'm scared to death, almost literally. I could just faint right here. But I'm going to go on because this is the task I've been given. So who would Bilbo be conflicted with? Bilbo versus Bilbo. Bilbo versus himself. In fact, the author tells us this is the bravest thing he ever did. There's an obvious, very obvious plot conflict. Who's the whole story against? Who are they working against the entire story? Yeah. Dwarves versus dwarves, which means and the Hobbit versus dragon. Everybody versus dragon. Dragons don't have friends. Dragons never have friends. And then, of course, we had I'm not going to write all these down. Versus the spiders, right? Versus the goblins, versus Gollum, versus trolls. We had so many of them. Now, I want to ask you guys, do you see on your story chart that the plot has an arc? Do you see that arc? And the idea of that arc is that all stories have a beginning, right? They explain things to you, the things you need to know. Like in this case, what are hobbits? They live in these holes. They like to eat a lot and smoke their pipes, and they don't like adventures, right? And then, but one day Gandalf visited this one hobbit and he started an adventure. And then the action goes on, and they meet trolls and they meet goblins, and they meet spiders and they meet elves and all this stuff happens. And then, at the end of the story, things kind of wind down. Bilbo gets home and the Sackville Bagginses are auctioning off his stuff because they're rude. And they have to bury the dead and take care of the treasure, after the battle. What do you think? And by the way, there's not one right answer here. I'm not fishing for something in particular. Is there a moment in the story where after that happens, everything just continues from there? It's like the high point of the story. And after that, you can just tell the way it's going to go. Can you think of a moment like that? Okay, one would be the war. Because after the war, it's decided, right? Thorin has a change of heart. Many goblins are dead. Many wargs are dead. Obviously, Thorin's kin are going to take over as king under the mountain, and things are going to be rebuilt. But did somebody else have a different idea? Yeah, what is the Arkenstone? The Arkenstone. Finding the Arkenstone. Either finding it or Bilbo's action of giving it. Which one did you mean? Finding it or giving it? Giving it? Because after that point, Bard's got it. I mean, it is only a matter of time before Thorin would give in. What do you think, Asher? Yeah, the death of the dragon. Could we call that the death of the dragon? Because basically it's the same. So death of dragon. Do you know what? These are all really good candidates, I feel like, for maybe a turning point where now everything is going to flow from that. Now, watch this. If we pick a certain conflict as the most important conflict, we might pick a certain high point. For example, of all the conflicts, that includes the spiders and the trolls and everything, what do you think might be one of the most important, like most pivotal for the whole book? What do you think, Hans?
Either Bilbo versus himself or dwarves versus.
I think those are really good choices. Because, this whole book, these last 3 weeks, we've been talking about how Bilbo changes, right? How he gets braver and braver. After he kills that spider, it says he feels like a new person. He did it alone. No one helped him. And he's getting braver and braver. And then there's that pivotal moment that I just read. It's like the bravest thing he ever did was walk down a tunnel and he knew a dragon was sitting at the other end. He did it. I wouldn't do it. So, if Bilbo versus himself is the pivotal conflict, like it's what this book's about, which high point do you think might match that? What is an action of Bilbo? A brave action of Bilbo. Maybe the death of dragon, because he led to the death of the dragon. The very fact that he went down that tunnel and took a look at the dragon led to the death of the dragon. It could be that. It could be going over there and giving the Arkenstone. Becoming, hey, Jaden, is he here? Becoming a part of the action. Do you know what I mean? Becoming like a mover and a shaker that makes things happen. Well, what if we think, this is an easy one. What if dwarves versus dragon is the most important thing? What is the high point? The death of the dragon, because that ends that conflict, right? And you see how the high point tends to take care of the conflict, depending on the conflict that we pick. Now, one last question, and then we've got like 20 minutes to blow through our history and art, which is fine. We will do it.
Art.
I brought artwork. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
This is kind of a deep question. So
Oh, I like the sound of this.
Was it a good idea for this adventure even to happen?
Oh.
Lots of people died, but they ended up getting the treasure and killing the dragon. But then we also got the ring, which
Yes.
Was it a good idea or a bad idea?
Can we, do you know what? Because we have time constraints, can we explore that after we read a little more about the ring? Can we look at that question in the light of what happens later? I would love to. Will you write it down somewhere? Don't forget, we're going to revisit that question in a few weeks, okay? I would like to revisit that question maybe next week, maybe the week after. And Zach, you're going to be my external memory because I don't remember things. Most stories explore a theme. And this was one other thing that's on your story chart. I don't mean a moral. Like the moral of the tortoise and the hare is don't be lazy and keep at your work. I don't mean that sort of thing. I mean a theme, like the effects of hate could be a theme, and a story could explore that. A Christmas Carol. Do you know the story of Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge? The theme of the Christmas Carol is the effects of greed and short-sightedness on a human being versus the joys of love and giving, right? It doesn't have a moral. It's not like, and the moral of a Christmas Carol is go out on Christmas morning and give away a bunch of stuff on the street. It's not that sort of thing. It's exploring a theme. If these are our important conflicts, what sort of theme is the author exploring? Could we sum up? How about this one particularly? How could we sum that up? What sort of theme is that? What happens to Bilbo? He gets braver. It's good, Jonathan. Self-enlightenment, knowing oneself, change from one sort of person to another person. Do you know, this theme is all over the place. I bet you can think of several fictional characters who went through hardships and became different than they were at the beginning of the story. I'm thinking of two currently. One is Luke Skywalker. He's just nobody on Tatooine on a moisture farm fixing those droids, you know? But his dad is like the super Sith Lord of all time. Except maybe for the Emperor. I don't know. We can explore that some other time. Luke has no idea what's going to be expected of him at the beginning, right? Can you think of another more recent one? Hint, sleeping in a little room under the stairs at his uncle and aunt's house. Harry Potter. Interesting. Also living with uncle and aunt. Luke is living with Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru.
Spider-Man is also living with his uncle and aunt.
I think that if you ever have to live with your uncle and aunt, you are destined for greatness. That is not true. What were you going to say, Nathan? Oh, that's right. That's right. He loses his dad, right, and has to live. So this is a theme that authors love, because we all want to change as people. We all want to think, I don't have to be always what I am, you know. And yes, and you know what? This is perfectly legitimate, because there's only a certain number of themes or plots or stories exist in the world. It's kind of what you do with them. Asher. Yes. Have you noticed that almost every Disney princess also has like no parents or no father? Yes.
What about?
Hey guys. Shh. Oh yeah, it's the magician's nephew, Diggory. Yes, Diggory's mom is dying. So this is a popular theme. And do you see what we did? How did we figure this out? Well, we looked, if this is the main conflict, then what is the author exploring? Well, self-change. If this is the main conflict, like dwarves versus dragons, maybe it's facing our fears. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's doing something against all odds. Do you know what I mean? Because when they set out, they're like, how are we going to kill it? I don't know. We'll just sit there and think of something. Not a good plan in dealing with dragons. So these all tie together. You know, you look at the plot. What's the high point of the plot? What's the conflict? What's the theme? This is how we can explore stories. Okay, now, this is the important thing for you to listen to. This week, I want you to, first of all, read through chapter 4 of the Fellowship of the Ring. If you've read beyond that, awesome. Read as far as you want ahead. Just read at least to the end of chapter 4. Okay, that's our goal for this week. Yes, what?
It's like the Lord of the Rings, kind of like Hobbit.
Yes.
Kind of linked with Hobbit.
It's very linked with Hobbit. It's very linked. Yes. Yes. But I will say no more, Jonathan. You must explore for yourself. But yes. In fact, you're going to meet Bilbo in the first chapter of the Fellowship of the Ring. So get through chapter 4. Here's the other thing I want you to do. I want you to sit down and look at the chart we made. And I want you to see if you have anything else you can add to it. Any ideas that we just didn't think of. You know what? Something might occur to you as you start reading the Fellowship of the Ring. If you add something, could you either do it in a different color or circle it? Because I would like you to share it with us next week, okay? Your paper that you're writing on is hopefully in your notebook, so you'll have it with you. And then just kind of circle it or set it apart to say, this is things I added. And then we're going to all steal from those people. We're going to steal ideas from other people because we can. All right? That's all I want you to do. Think about this question. And as you keep reading and thinking about it, put down, oh my goodness, that is such a reason that was a good thing to do. Or, oh my goodness, he never should have done that. All right? And then share it with us. No other writing. You're not going to hand anything in next week. Okay? Does that make sense? And read through chapter 4. We are going to spend the next several minutes kind of going through our history. And then maybe we'll do this at the end, the artwork that I laid out. That would be good because I wanted to gather you all to look at it. So that's good. Turn to page 43 in your reading questions, please. You finished the chapter on Renaissance Italy. Who was Savonarola and what was his message? This was the first question I asked you. What was this guy doing or saying? That is indeed, I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. That's how I say it. I didn't look up on Google. How do you say this person's name? It seems right to me. Nobody? He is Italian. He's living in Florence because we're talking about Renaissance Italy. Did anybody find this or write it down? Caleb, you're brave. What did you write? A monk who was concerned about Florence's money. What was he concerned about? Was he concerned they didn't have enough of it? Do you remember? Did he think they needed more money or less money? How about I tell us what Dorothy Mills had to say? Hang on.
So how do you spell that?
Well, it's on your reading question, Jaden. Here's what it says. He looked with dismay at the luxury and materialism that great wealth had brought to Florence. He began to preach as soon his sermons were famous. He said, "You people are crummy Christians, and here's why. Because you care more about your money than you do about God. And that is not what the church is supposed to be about, and that's not what Christianity is about. And you people have lost sight of what's really important." Basically, that's what he said. What? Savonarola. It's okay. If your book like mine, Asher, does it look just like mine? I'm on page 43. Look on page 43.
What are the odds of any question?
Oh, that's probably ominous or significant. No, it's not really. Savonarola did not say the church is wrong or the church is bad. He's not like Wycliffe. He's not like the later reformers. He has no quarrel with what the church teaches. He says, you people don't follow what the church teaches. Y'all are so wrapped up in your stuff, you don't care about God anymore. And this guy must have been an amazing speaker because people just flocked to hear him. Really long sermons. They would wait for hours to hear this guy talk, just to hear him preach. Can you imagine waiting in a line outside a church for a couple of hours to get in to hear the preacher give the sermon? And the sermon's going to last several hours. Like, that guy's a good speaker. And he fired people up so much, literally and metaphorically, that they brought their stuff, artwork, fancy clothes, fancy jewelry, and they built a bonfire and they just threw it all in fire. They just burned their stuff. It's known as the bonfire of the vanities. Something that's vain means it's useless, it's worthless, and obviously the stuff was worth money, but it didn't have spiritual worth. Yeah, they just burned all their luxury items in a big bonfire. Now, I don't know, we had not much action on the first part of this question. What happened to him was the second part. Maybe this stuck in your mind more. Does anybody remember what happened to him? What happened? He was burned at the stake. And why? I know. Well, here's the problem. Florence got rid of their Medici rulers, and it was in political turmoil. And this preacher, this monk, tried to take over politics. He started, more than dabbling in politics. He started really being a mover and a shaker in politics. And it's really hard to keep your message pure, when you're dealing in politics. But also, last week we talked about Italy, right? It was a mess. And if you are in political control of anything, there's somebody out there that hates you. There's definitely going to be someone in Italy that hates you. And maybe it's the Pope. And they engineered him being tried for heresy, although he was not a heretic. He just ticked off the wrong people, I think. But he wasn't very, we have politicians like this today, maybe more than we think, that just don't watch what they say, shoot off at the mouth before they think about it, perhaps, and cause a little bit of trouble. He was like that. But he had enemies that could actually get him burnt at the stake. This is a sad story, but you know what? His initial message was not bad. It does distract us when we have tons of stuff, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up in our stuff and not think about the things that really matter, the things that will last, Okay, next question. Oh, yes. No. Oh, no, go ahead.
If he had all of these followers who were just flocking to him, how did he just get him burning at the stake? No one was like, oh, that's too bad.
You know what? I'm going to answer your question with another question. How did Jesus have all of these people waving palm branches and saying, oh, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord? And by the end of the week, they crucified him. The same crowd. They're like throwing palm branches and then, oh, crucify him. We'll take Barabbas. Crowds are fickle. You can't ever trust the crowd. I think that's the answer. Okay, I'm going to say something kind of not very nice sounding, but I think it's true. Mobs of people, the vast majority of us, don't think real hard, and we just do what other people do, right? And if the prevailing sentiment of the crowd we hang with changes, we change. That's why it's such a blessing you guys are here. Like you're gonna work your way through logic to learn how to think properly, so you don't have to be sheep, and just go with the crowd. Because for the most part, crowds just go with the rest of the crowd. I think that's the sad truth. What I'm thinking of, maybe Mrs. Gamble knows. Okay, it might be a movie. Somebody said a person is like good and smart, but people are like a bunch of idiots or a flock of sheep. I can't even think of the quote, but it's like I can see it in a movie. Somebody saying, but people are a bunch of idiot sheep, and you know it. That was how it, and you know it. But I don't know the scene or the movie or anything. But this is yes, thank you. The magic wand will tell us. Okay, next question. What happened to Venice after Constantinople fell in 1453? Venice was the richest place. What happened after? Mm-hmm. What happened in Venice after Constantinople fell? Zach. Venice was the place. I got no board to draw my horrible map because I didn't bring my other map. So you've got, oh, wait a minute. We don't have to resort to that. Yeah! That shows you what I spend my time watching. Okay, so everybody turn to page 83 in the back of your guide, and there's a map. So Constantinople, well, okay, so let's find Venice. Find Italy. Does everybody know how to find Italy? It looks like a boot. It sticks down into the Mediterranean. Look at the top of Italy, where Italy is stuck into the rest of Europe. Do you see Venice? Venice would sail out the Adriatic Sea there to the east and go back and forth to Constantinople. Everything that came from the east came to Europe through Venice. And Venice charged money for that. So Venice got really, really rich. Then All the east fell to the Turks. They can't go there anymore. Where are they going? Now I have to use my map, imaginary map. Here's Europe. Here's Africa. They start by leaving Europe and going down the coast of Africa, right? Am I doing it? I'm doing it my direction, not your direction. Europe, they're going down the coast of Africa and around and then to the east and then back and forth. Now, Venice is nowhere on this route. Italy is nowhere on this route. What is? I'm going to end up in Portugal and Spain and England. They become the powers because they're doing the trade routes. They're importing and exporting. And poor Venice and Italy just sits there. What happened to us? What all the ships used to come here. They don't come here anymore. They can't. It's not on the route anymore. Does that make sense to you guys? And then somebody said, go west. Yes, until Columbus says, you know what, everybody, this route, that's a drag. Just go this way. Just go this way. It's a great idea, except there's something in the way. I didn't know there was something in the way. But if there had been nothing in the way, it was also farther than he thought. But if there was nothing in the way, it would have worked. So Venice lost her edge. Venice went down. Okay, last question. What seemed to be the greatest preoccupations of the 16th century popes? What did all the popes seem to want in the 1500s? Money. We could add power, political influence. What is missing from this list that you should hope that the Pope would care about? Yeah, like reverence, God. Okay. Now, here's what I want to do. I know you're going to, when I start talking, you're going to start packing things up, but please don't. Just wait a moment so you don't make the rustling noises. You read about a bunch of artists, just a ton of artists. And there's no way I'm going to bring in artwork for all these artists at once and show you. But I brought in the first two. And for the next few weeks, I'm just going to bring in some artwork and show you. Okay. Hopefully next week we'll have a little more time than this. Okay. The first two artists you read about were Cimabue and Giotto. They were really early, like the 1200s, early 1300s, very, very early. And they started that change that we call the Renaissance. So art before them was Eastern. This is, I showed you this before, I think. This is Byzantine art. It's kind of flat. Here's how I like to look at art. I always like to look at their clothes. How the clothes drape. Does it look flat? Does it look real? I'm enchanted with the way clothes drape, and this is my thing, apparently. And so it's very, I mean, you can see folds, but it's just kind of weird. It doesn't look real at all. The faces are kind of flat. Cimabue, though, he wanted to paint a crucifix, a picture of Jesus on the cross, and this is a close-up. And it's not the most attractive face, although it does tell us in the Bible, you know, Isaiah said he had no, I can't think of the quote, his appearance, no comely appearance, that he would be attracting people to him. I think you know what I mean, although I'm not quoting it exactly. This is his close-up. This is Jesus. He's got the sternum. He's got musculature and bones. His hair isn't just plastered on. His face is rounded. This is Cimabue. He did another, this is also a Cimabue. Yes. This is a close-up of a whole painting of him on the cross. It's just a close-up of his face. But what I'm going to do is lay out some pictures of the other guy, Giotto, and I'm going to lay him out here on the chairs. You guys can pack up, but would you take a look at some of these paintings as you go? This isn't a very good art introduction, but I would love for you to just take a look at some of these beautiful paintings. These are all Giotto. Take a look at all of them as you pass by to inspire you for your day. And have a lovely day, guys.